Hey artists, we're gonna draw and paint these awesome spooky houses. Follow along with me and I'll show you all the steps to make your own. All right, to get started with our spooky house, we wanna draw a horizon line. I like to leave, 3 or 4 finger spaces down here at the bottom worth of space. And I plan on making my spooky house tall. Some people might have a wider spooky house and they might do their paper this way. So that is up to you how you decide to do that. We usually start off with a basic rectangle. Notice that my rectangle is not perfectly straight because the more kind of unbalanced and pieced together our house looks, the better. We don't want it to look very neat and orderly. We want it to look kind of funky and irregular. So I might then add some kind of roof shape on here. And we will have lots of different examples of houses out. I might add on a room here. And maybe there's a little porch here. With a little roof here. And it's just kind of up to you how you choose to do things. So maybe on top of here I have a second story. Something's getting on my paper. And maybe this one I will add a tower to. Let's see, we'll have a nice tower up here. And we can do different shapes for our roof. Like this one might have a shape that kind of comes down like this. And maybe this one will have a little railing for people to stand out here on this little patio we'll put here. Lots of windows and different shapes of windows. I could have this window kind of come out like this with a little roof shape. So we're just going along and adding what we think would look good. Maybe a little chimney here. Some different window shapes here. And we're just thinking about how we could make this house look a little bit scarier, a little spookier. My door isn't quite straight. I'll have some different window shapes. Maybe I'll have a little spider web here in the corner. We could have some different brick shapes coming out. Maybe they're kind of coming apart a little bit. So the more creepy details make for an interesting story. Like maybe one light is on and some of the others are off. Or maybe I'll have a little cat peeking out of the window and its eyes are glowing. Or maybe there's something else in the window. So we're just going to kind of sketch out our spooky house, think about the shape of the house that we like, adding in the windows, and then we can begin adding our paint. All right, I added some details. I added some extra windows and a little porch and a little tower and a little fence here and some stairs. So I'm feeling pretty satisfied with my spooky house and how it's put together. Now I'm going to think about how that paint is going to look. We are not going to want bright colors. Sometimes with a spooky house, it's kind of a neglected house. That's part of the interesting story. So we're going to have kind of dull colors, boring colors, and that's going to make it look more like the type of house we're looking for. So I've got our paints here. And we might be using a smaller brush for smaller details and a bigger brush for bigger areas, but I always like to start at the top. And I've got kind of this greenish color here, and I'm just going to slowly start painting. Maybe parts of the house are painted one color and other parts of the house are painted another color because they've just kind of fallen apart. You can think about if you want your windows to look like the lights are on or the lights are off. If you want it to look like nighttime or if it's more of a sunset, you're going to be thinking about how you can show that with the colors you choose with your paint. This is looking like a nice dull color to me. I'm enjoying how that is making our house look. I know sometimes I see these houses in movies where they have like a vine growing. So maybe you could take your brush and have little vines growing down the side. Growing all over the house. This is totally up to you how you want to decorate and make this house more fun and unique for you. I'm going to choose kind of a darker red for my roof and go ahead and add that color. So the wonderful part about watercolor is we can work in layers. I can put one layer down and then I can put another layer on top to add to our details. So what we're going to do first is probably lay down the first layer of color, and then we can go back and we continue to add things. We can add texture to the roof. We can add things growing, things shifting. We can add texture. But right now, we will probably want to stick with just getting the color on, and then we'll go back and add those details. Okay, now that I've got that base color on, the next thing we can work on is adding extra details. Like if the lights are on, we might choose yellow. Maybe the attic light is on, so we'll put some yellow light coming in through that window. And maybe over here in the tower, the lights are on. And somebody's up in this room. Now for our windows that we want to look like maybe the lights are off, we could put kind of a blue-gray color over. Ooh, that's pretty bright. You might have to kind of mix that up. And so we can make some of the rooms look like the lights are off or darker by adding like maybe a little bit of gray and blue together. To kind of give it that shadowy look inside. And then we want to go over those window lines to kind of define the outside. All right, this is looking awesome. So once your windows are colored in, you could start adding some detail to the house. Like if you wanted it to look like there was stone, you could kind of start drawing the little stone shapes on here. You could add more vines. You could add bricks. You could just have some cracks. Maybe the house has got some little cracks kind of going up through where it's falling apart a little bit. So this is, again, the great thing about using our watercolors. We can layer up on top of other colors. So I can add these kind of, like an old stone house, I can kind of show the stones. And adding in that texture is looking pretty cool. I could choose a color and work on the banister. So we're just kind of using our paintbrush to go in and add some detail to the house. Yeah, I can color this in. So now is the time you've got your base color on your house and you can kind of go back and be adding those details. I might choose a color to go around the windows. Maybe I'll do brown. So then I can go around the window and kind of show the wood that's around the outside. So that's really helping to define the windows by adding that wood piece around the edge. So we're going to go through with our paint and just add some details. If I want the roof to look like it has little roof shingles, I can go back and kind of put those little shingle shapes on. I'm using the same color, it's just now it's a little darker because I have it more concentrated with less water on my brush. So that's making a nice texture. And we're just going to keep adding those details. Might just take my wet brush and smooth out some of those edges. All right, as we're adding in details, you could start putting different things in the window. Like I'm gonna have this little cat peeking out. So I'm going to just kind of outline him. And then we can also put the little glowing yellow eyes once the black dries. We can also go ahead and add some color to our windows. If you wanted to have a person, you could have just kind of the shadow of a person in the window. Just like there's a person kind of peeking out. So there's lots of different things you could do to add detail. And then we're also, before we kind of finish up on the house, we're gonna wanna add the background before we put our final touches on. So we've added some vines, we've added some texture, we've got color. Let's go ahead and get the bigger brush. And with the bigger brush, we can go ahead and add in some color to the sky. And you can think if you want it to look like the sun is setting, or maybe it's just dark nighttime. And we're going to do that with our paint. So if you want like a big moon in the sky, you can paint that nice nighttime moon. And maybe with a bigger brush, we could start adding some color to the sky. And we'll want to do that in sections. So you'll just take your brush, get your paper wet. You could add in some blue. To make it look more like nighttime, you might add in some purple. If you want a sunset, you might be adding a little bit of orange and pink, and then having it fade to like the nighttime purple. So you can be thinking about the colors you want for your sky. Oh, I'm liking that spooky kind of purple. And I'm going to add some more water to make sure I don't get lines in my sky. Keep it moving and flowing. I want to fill in all that white space. And then I can add the purple in. I'm going to wet my brush so I could kind of blend the color together with just water. And then we can go ahead and keep painting. And I'm just double checking to see if I missed any spots in my sky. I need to get right here and just kind of scoot around here. And I'm just using a brush with water to kind of blend and make sure things blend together. And now I've got the color down for my sky. And while that is drying, I could also start adding some color to the ground. And so we're just gonna color the ground, kind of let the background dry, and go back to adding detail to our house. All right. Once you get to the point that you've got your sky colored in, the ground, and you've added some texture, then it's time to just finish it up with little details you can add. So I see that I have some space here. I'm probably gonna wanna color that in, and I just have to choose a color. I think I'm going to go with this. So I'm just adding that detail. And because our paint is drying pretty quickly, we can again just keep adding layers on top of those details. So we've got this here up in the sky. If I wanted to have maybe some clouds, we could add some clouds up here with my purple. That might be a little too dark, so I'll add some water. I could also take the black, and if I wanted to, I could add some birds or bats in the background. I could go ahead and go over my little spider web that I had here so we can see it again. So we're just taking our brush, our smaller brush, and we're going in and adding any little details that we would like to add. We can add the line on the windows. We could add the shadow of a tree. So if I wanted to have maybe a tree growing right here. I could go ahead and put that tree and the branches in here. We could reach right over the house. Okay, so we add the tree in. I could put my little fence back in. So we're just going over those details, kind of adding this last final layer of color onto the painting. It's really coming along. We've got a lot of cool stuff going on here. So just anything we want to fix up, we can fix up, and then we will be finished with this awesome spooky house. All right, I finished adding in those extra details, and it looks like this spooky house is all finished. We added some birds in the sky or bats, added some extra little shadows in the windows. Not sure who we've got there. Finished up with some details in the yard with the weeds and kind of the grass that's not mowed, and just any other little details you can think of to finish it up. We've got some cracks here in the paint. I think it looks amazing and super spooky, and I can't wait to see the spooky house that you paint.